Dan, let's say this little fiscal tiff is resolved one way or another. That does not mean that in 2019 there aren't other fiscal collisions between the Democrats and the Republicans on the Hill and in the White House. There are appropriation bills that we'll have to move through. Remember that phrase, debt ceiling? That comes back next year. Sequestration spending comes back next year. We've got a year ahead of us on that.
So we noticed that investors were a lot more anxious over this current spending budget debate than you normally see. It's a government shutdown. If it shuts down, the Democrats will open the government back up on January 3rd. It shouldn't really be viewed as a big deal. But you're forecasting or foreshadowing budget trench warfare possibly coming back in 2019 as we got to go through this series of rolling fiscal cliffs. Now, to Nancy Pelosi's credit, she was an excellent speaker in 2007, 2008 when George Bush was president, and she made sure that there was no major fiscal issues. And she demanded her priorities, an increase in the minimum wage, student loan interest rates going down. The question will be whether her caucus will be that willing to go for accomplishments, which I think is the right strategy, or are they going to want to have a fight over the Trump tax cuts? And that remains to be unresolved. And I would argue 8 years ago, no one really believed that the Republicans were going to make this major debt ceiling fight until you got to April, May. And then it was like, wow, we need to rip the roots out of this. So we got to watch that progress itself. But these issues are now in addition to trade, in addition to the president investigations, in addition to slowing global growth, and it becomes a compounding effect.
All right, let's pivot to trade, Michael Farr. You as an investor, putting other people's money to work.
Right.
As you look at trade, and there are two things out there, not just China, it's what is going to happen with that U.S., Mexico, Canada agreement on the Hill and how it might be changed. How do you look at those two issues and put money to work in light of what you think is going to happen?
The toughest thing we've had to do over the past year, Tyler, is to try and distinguish the rhetoric from the reality, because there's so much more rhetoric in Washington. It's so much more heated, and trying to parse through it and find out exactly what the details are going to be. And on both of those fronts, we still don't have any idea. I guess we have a better idea with the new North American free trade agreement, how this form it's taking, and it doesn't look bad. But clearly, tariffs are an impediment, right? It's another tax. It slows things down, and it's another headwind to markets and to the economy.